Alright guys, now in case you're wondering, this is a continuation, or rather the conclusion of my Zelda timeline theory. I apologize for the lack of anything but a black screen, but my laptop has once again crashed, and this time it's because my hard drive is completely toasted, so there's really not much I can do in relation to that. First, I'd like to thank two people. First, Trudge2097 for his great responses to my video of the Zelda timeline, and AG Entertainment for featuring my video on his channel and showing it to some of his friends and subscribers, which helped get my message out. Now I'd like to point out first that all of this isn't necessarily a reiteration of my previous videos as much as it is my personal conclusion to my side of the argument. Firstly, I'd like to say I was hesitant about making this video so soon after watching Trudge's video because of my laptop, but I'd like to get a few things across immediately. First, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that my timeline might have inspired something of another theory for Trudge, which is the Tetraforce theory. Now, while I do have a couple of reservations about agreeing with this particular timeline theory, I did leave a few comments on his video on my take on it. I'd also like to say that one of my main reasons for disagreeing with linear timeline theory is due to the lack of a Master Sword after the Wind Waker, because it's been shown consistently throughout the series, and there hasn't been a need to assume that it's a different Master Sword. For example, it starts out in the Temple of Time in Ocarina of Time, and in Twilight Princess, the temple moves its location to what is now the Faron Woods, and the Temple of Time slowly deteriorates. Afterward, it stays in the Lost Woods throughout, up till A Link to the Past. On the right side, the Master Sword stays in the Temple of Time, so in a linear timeline, the Wind Waker would take place before Twilight Princess based on that knowledge. As I said, though, the Master Sword is lost at sea, and given the appropriate placements of the Phantom Sword, the Magical Sword, and the Force Sword, which is why, if the timeline is linear, Ocarina of Time's era might have to take place late in the timeline, which obviously can't work due to the constraints that it has to be early in the timeline, you know, Ganondorf's origins and all that. I digress, though. That's my last criticism of the linear timeline theory, but Trudge, I did enjoy your videos, and I honestly hope that you weren't finished, because I do think that you have a lot of insightful and good things to say. Now, my closing thoughts. I have to once again refer to Trudge's comparison, how he refers to us being lawyers in the case of the timeline, and how the best case may very well win the quote-unquote argument. Well, I propose that everyone think of this as something a little less competitive and more pro-choice. We're all proposing different flavors of soda or ice cream, if you will, to present to the public. There's really no right or wrong answer because it's all perception, though we have our criticisms of the placement of the games, or I'll refer to them as the ingredients, if you will. There really isn't any right or wrong flavor because it's all based on perception. My timeline and Game Trailer's timeline and other people's timelines, like Trudge timeline, may meet a little bit more positive scrutiny than other timelines, but if you search YouTube, you'll find dozens of timeline theories, all of which revolve around the perception of the games. I mean, there are quotes that solidify some people's placements, and some people simply infer certain things about their placements. You know, there's some flavors, again, that revolve around split timeline theories, but different placements of the games. So similar tastes, but different as well. So think Coke and Pepsi in that case. Just as well, my timeline and Trudge's timeline, split versus linear, are vastly different and could be compared between Coke and Sprite, if you will. There's always going to be people that like certain flavors yet dislike others, no matter how much evidence you show or advertising you do for your flavor. Now, I know I'm speaking in metaphors, so just try to imagine what I'm talking about. You know, in the end, though we may be arguing about it, it really is all up to perception, and while some people may like how we state our case, others are always going to disagree. which is why YouTube has several variations of what we're saying, so people can find something that appeals to them or simply come up with something on their own to add to the variety. For example, I could simply say that my timeline is a split timeline. It starts how I start it through Ocarina of Time, and then on the far left side you have Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, as those directly relate to Ocarina of Time. And on the far right side, you have The Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, and perhaps the 8-bit games if you want. And simply in between those two splits, there's several other splits. You could say that there's several splits because, as Trej mentioned, temporal mechanics. It could, in fact, work that every Zelda game fits in the middle of there somewhere in several different splits based on where in Ocarina of Time Link leaped forward and all that, and it could simply dictate different games. I mean, you could be that far out there, or you could simply say that all the games are just a reiteration of one Legend of Zelda and are just simply retellings, barring the ones that mention others like Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time and all that. You could come up with several different things if you wanted to. Those are just two, and the splits, the numerous splits, is just something I came up with off the top of my head. But anyway, that's the point I'm trying to make. You could come up with any kind of different timeline, and it's plausible as long as you can provide the evidence for it. Anyways, to conclude, this is Lan, your friendly neighborhood Zelda theorizer, challenging you, the viewer, to state your own case if you haven't already made one, or expand on yours if you already have made one. I know this has been a bit boring, black screen and all, but I hope you're still watching, and I hope to see more videos that will inspire others, myself included, to continue to fuel the fire of Zelda timeline theories. Anyways, thanks guys, this is Lan, and I'm signing off on this really slow desktop computer. So, have a good day, everyone.